Hello and welcome to the LJL OU. We are back once again, and what a day this is going to be. Day 16, I believe, now.
Yeah.
Moving on to this one, and it's I like had that in my notes, but then I haven't written it on my notes, so I was like, wait, I'm really hoping it's day 16, but it is day 16, and it's going to be a good one, and some huge games coming through today. DFM Rascal Jesters kicking us off today. Is history going to repeat itself? Middle court, Master One, let's bring you in. Middle court, what's your prediction? Does history repeat itself? Do Rascal Jesters take the win off DFM?
Ooh, well, that is a
off the bat.
That is the big question off the bat. Well, of course, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for Rascal Jester than it otherwise would be because DFM have been forced to sub Ebby out of that top lane. Unfortunately, he's not feeling too well. So Utapon is going to be playing up there, and they're bringing in their Academy AD carry in Marimo to round out the bot lane. So I think DFM will still feel like they are favored, but Rascal Jesters definitely have a very, very good shot of taking them down.
I'm of the opinion that DFM will still reign victorious and that this is a momentary blip on what will be a fantastic split for Detonation FocusMe. Yes.
Yeah, well, there definitely is that potential. DFM, I believe, if they win this game, they are pretty much secured first place, no matter what they do, because it would separate them with Rascal Jesters by about 5 games. So Rascal Jesters would have to win all of the next 5, and DFM would have to lose, I believe, all of them as well, which is very unlikely. So I think a win here pretty much does secure DFM at top spot, even though a loss here would probably still secure.
Still keeps them in Juggernaut as well. Actually, I love that. That's huge, even if they lose out.
So they are sitting pretty happy, to be fair, at the top of the table. They are standing still head and shoulders above everyone else, but obviously this is still a big game, and they want to prove that they are the best, undefeated. And as you said, you brought about those obviously changes. Evie not being too well, Utapon moving into the top lane. Monster One, you've been about a bit more. I've heard Utapon has been in the top lane before. Is this something that is going to be competitive, or is it kind of like, okay, they're going to play weak side top, just play around for that bot side?
So Uta's off-roll for at least the last season and a half of my coverage. When I came in, he played a bit more flex of jungle a little bit when he was playing with Seros in solo queue in 2020, but he's been playing a lot of top lane in queue. It's his off role. Sometimes it's his main role in solo queue because he just prefers the play patterns. He plays a lot of typical things that you would expect from AD carry. He plays things like Quinn. So like he has those kind of options. He also plays a lot of Tryndamere. So we might just be getting the Ebby pool with Utapon, which means we don't actually have to worry about the top lane because Utapon is the top lane jungling, AD carrying support master that can do everything but play mid lane because he hasn't ever needed to play mid lane. But he could if he would, and we know he'd be better than most. It's Utapon, boy. He's the greatest in the LJL. What
there's a lot of hype. I wasn't expecting so much hype on you on top lane, but that's because I don't know. That's because I ain't seen it before. But I'm excited to hear that the champion pool was interesting. Like the Queen.
You guys were talking about no. I'm taking it back. You guys were talking about a certain game of Apex Legends. Yes. He's been top probably 100 in that game at one point.
Yeah, is Utapon the one that was also like an Overwatch?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's Kanatsu as well.
Kanatsu was an Overwatch Pro, but Utapon was very, very good at basically everything that he's ever done.
And he wanted to juggle Valorant Pro and League Pro at the same time.
Well,
that's why
let me show you how the boss does it. Straight up, that is mad from him.
Oh, can we see set from him? Oh, I want to see that now. Oh, put the boss on the boss. That would be cool. Set would definitely be a cool pick to take up. I feel like we haven't really seen too much Set. I feel like we've kind of moved away from that. A lot of Nara's come back.
Yeah.
We've seen some Tryndamere. It's kind of shifted off of that. Admittedly, I'm glad that we're not seeing any more Bard Smite. That was a little bit of a weird one. But moving on swiftly from that, Rascal Jester is when they last played DFM and they last picked up the win. They kind of did it through an early game just dominance. They won early, they took the game, they held their lead, and they held it strong, and they never let it go. Is that something you think they can replicate middle court? Because obviously we know DFM have had some smoking fast victories recently.
They have done, but with this roster move, and I think with the quality that Rascal Jester have in their lanes anyway, it's definitely a possibility that you can go a bit more of that early game route. I really don't want I really wouldn't favor any team to go up against DFM with even a minor gold lead at 25 minutes, just because of how good DFM are in that scenario. So I think if Rascal Jester are going to pull out the win today, it's more likely to be through that early aggression, through getting those advantages from Hachimecha in that early game, and then snowballing them out of control so that DFM, whilst they are still a very good team, probably not good enough to overcome a 10k gold lead earlier into the game.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw a question back to you as well, because we talked about this early lead, obviously in the bot lane, Soul being a big carry for Rascal Jesters. Do you think Marimo can kind of stand up to that, or do you think that there's maybe a little bit of a weakness in the armor there?
I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, Marimo did have a good showing on DFM Academy last year, so I don't think I'm going to be too surprised if he actually stands up. His pool's a little bit weird. He's played a lot of stuff like the Ashe and the Cogmore, which even last year when he was playing them weren't particularly meta, so maybe we see some funky picks coming out. But I definitely think that DFM have kind of lost both of their carry lanes, with Utapon being forced to swap up to top lane. So a lot of pressure into this bot lane from Rascal Jester, I think will be rewarded quite well.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a way that keeps them afloat. They are right now on an 8-win streak, which means they've been everyone in the league at least once, plus one more. Midcott did remind me that CGA was the last team that took a game off them. But DFM, we kind of got to talk about how they've played, because they've been setting some records recently in their last games. Admittedly, they've not had the toughest schedule. You know, they have played against a lot of teams that are much lower than them. Obviously, they did beat Sengoku last time.
When everyone's below you, J-Real, like that's what happens, mate.
That is true. But speedrunning against the Hawks, speedrunning against Burning Core, I feel like is a little bit less of a like, wow, rather than it being like, okay, yeah, kind of expected that one. But do you think that their power level, has been increasing as the season has gone on? Because obviously there was a lot of question marks about how good they'd be week one, but they've clearly proven that they're very solid. And some people even said about midway through the season that they think that this is potentially a stronger DFM than was before.
Yeah, I think the opportunity and the ceiling for this roster is slightly higher than the DFM super team. And that's mainly, and this is something I've mentioned on the podcast a few times, because this roster is together for 2 full splits. The opportunity for so much more practice scrimming. We're in a new format where not just from a scrimming perspective, but from an on-stage or just playing perspective, you've got another round robin. There are more games ever in the LJL than really ever before. And for a team like DetonatioN FocusMe, who want to ramp up and hopefully replicate what they did at Worlds last year, this is a fantastic way to do it. I think the floor on this team is pretty high, and the ceiling is maybe as high as summer DFM of 2021. So I think there's a big opportunity. We just need to see these parts keep going in the way that we're seeing them go, because there is always that opportunity when a team is so far on top and ahead of everybody else that they start to feel a bit more complacent, a bit comfortable on the high chair. It seems like from interviews, at least, the players of DFM are very much onto the idea that we're going to try lots of things out. We're going to keep pushing. Hina mentioned this on the podcast, that they have rarely played the same playstyle more than a few times this split so far. I think we're going to keep seeing that, J-Real, because if they don't and they start getting complacent, that's when a team like Rascal Jester, that's when even a Sengoku could definitely give them curveballs and take even that first place mantle from them and go to an international stage.
Yeah, well, DFM have definitely blown up on the international stage, and people need to focus them soon, because it's a sentiment where they are really looking good. And in this league, they've been very strong. Now, with that, we are going to be kicking off to Game 1. Champion Select has begun. Middle court must one. Have a good game.
Thank you very much, J-Real.
Thank you.
As one of the realest guys I know, appreciate that. Thank you. We are now jumping into Champions Select. Rascal Jester here on the blue side, DFM on the red. And my must one, I don't think I've seen this many mid lane bans in a very long time.
I mean, there's technically the full 6 if you feel like Yaharong or Recap will actually deflect. And I mean, first picked Ari as well. I mean, that is a huge amount of focus given over. And there's not a lot of counter picks that Ari would be particularly bothered about. And from the side of Rascal Jester, and I actually like the opening blue side Ari from Rascal Jester here, because you know they're going to now completely play around the idea and the composition of this. I don't think DFM will actually lock in their mid laner unless they do it in this next rotation. Because if they don't do it next rotation around, it means it's going to have to get through a second pick a ban phase. And it means that DFM were never that phased, and they are going to leave Rascal Jester all the options to really get the best opportunity to know what's going to be in the jungle alongside this Ahri, so they don't have to worry about it. But DFM going with the Jinx first pick, I love it. That makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and it's one of those sort of top tier meta ADCs that we didn't know if Marimo was actually going to be playing, so it's good to see that's being pulled out. The Renekton, another one of sort of these flex picks, maybe something that Utapon could just survive through with on the top side, or they could flex it down to Yaharong in the mid lane. So DFM still leaving themselves with a few options after this first rotation.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to love the spot that you're getting put in. You're looking at it and going, okay, well, we've got a flex pick option. We've got probably the best AD carry for Marimo to be put on top of. So, I mean, that should be some comfort there. Over the opposite side, though, Recap is going to be getting ganked by a Volibear. So now we know where that's going. Most likely, unless Volibear decides to go top, but that's very uncommon nowadays. Obviously, Soul is going to be on this Kai'Sa. They've already picked the Ahri, so there's no way that's getting flexed around now with Recap, and I don't see a reason to play it anywhere else. I wonder if this Rise pick is locked in, if they're actually going to do the crazy thing of basically having the opportunity to flex Rise mid or top, or to choose to put Renekton mid or top, and they're just going to see which matchup they want to opt into, depending on who the top laner is going to be picked. Doesn't matter, though, because we're in the second rotation of bans, and you have to imagine the jungle pool of steel is going to get attacked here by Rascal Jester.
Yeah, I think if you're not removing that Poppy or that Hecarim, you're probably doing something well, because not only has Steel looked good on that sort of more pocket pick of the Poppy, that sort of meta-defiant Hecarim has also been very potent, but instead, Rascal Jester, fearing the combination of the Nidalee with the instant CC that Renekton and Rise can provide, and it means that Steel might get something he's a little bit more comfortable on.
I mean, the thing is, we know Steel. He has just brute force junglers in the past. 2021 was the Shaco LeBlanc meta for DFM. This time around, are we going back to the old classics? No, not Rascal Jester going to ban it out. So what's going to be the new one for them? I mean, the Kindred was picked in a lot of similar spots for this way back in 2020. So, I mean, Steel Champion Ocean is there. Deciding to actually go with the Tahm Kench, I actually really like that from Rascal Jester, and I'm complimenting him a lot in this draft, and I'm not too surprised I'm complimenting a lot, because think about it, there's a lot of immobileness that's on the side of DFM when it just comes to Jinx. We're going to have to see a Gale Force most likely from Marimo. The Tahm Kench could have saved a lot of issues they currently have. Not going to have those options now, so it's going to be interesting to see the support angle they want to go, but they will know the matchup they're going into, so if they want to go Enchanter, like a Lulu kind of option, or even a Yuumi and Crazy, because they did look into Diana, and Yuumi and Diana is a lovely combo.
Yeah, jump on her, provide those bonus stats, that extra movement speed, the attack speed as well, the engage options, it's all pretty nice when you're diving into the backline. I am going to be reprising one of the staple picks of the LJL in this Gnar. And Secret is going to be forced to round off the support pool. Could go for something a little bit more engaged focus, something like a Leona. Does pair out very well with the Kai'Sa. With those passive procs, you can get so much damage down in lane and really pressure out this Jinx. Going to be the Rakan instead. A little bit more flexible, a little bit less of a pure tank, but still can provide a lot of that CC.
Yeah, and I mean, necessarily, Rascal Jester have their frontliners with this Volibear, with this Gnar, obviously assuming Mega pops up. So they've got I really like this. Rakan is going to have a lot of options when it comes to team fighting, because he can ult, he can either get on top of Gnar, he can jump on there, he can knock up with an Ahri. If Ahri decides to just run forward among everybody else, you can still actually keep up with her, and then jump back away. So I think the fluidness that the Rascal Jester's comp has with positioning in team fights is going to be really important to watch Secret and where he is in a lot of these fights. On the opposite side, Thresh was locked in for Harp. I'm so excited whenever you see a player like Harp, a player like Secret even, or obviously Nemo, who had the point and click hooks for a few matches. It felt like he was maybe the best Thresh in the region. It's so exciting to see it. Lantern is huge for a comp like what DFM have done, because you've so many angles that they can just pull in a Renekton out of nowhere, pull in a Diana. Oh, what are you feeling, middle court? Who are you favoring?
Well, I mean, if we're looking purely at these drafts so far, I think the Rascal Jester have actually got stuff that's a little bit more interesting to me. I'm not a massive fan of picking Diana right now, especially into the Volibear. We know that this is a pick that has so much strength in the early game. Diana much more focused at getting towards that level 6 mark, having that Moonfall available. And with Ryze as your mid laner, your mid jungle 2v2 isn't particularly strong in early levels. So I think if Rascal Jester can leverage that, then they've got a pretty decent chance at getting that early lead that we were talking about, Master Swan. And maybe they can snowball that into a victory.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because in reality, that is how DFM lost this last game. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You called it perfectly on the desk. Rascal Jester got ahead in that previous match, and they looked very strong in doing so. We saw the exact same thing happen in their first matchup, but Middlecott, they're going on the Rift.
Yeah, we're going on the Rift, Lexi. Let's get ready for Rascal Jester versus DFM. Game on indeed for our match of the week. Haven't mentioned that yet, by the way, between Rascal Jester here on the blue side, DFM on the red. Can DFM take down Rascal Jester even with the subs in their places, or will Rascal Jester keep up the pressure at the top of the table?
So, I'm of the opinion that Rascal Jester's comp has a higher opportunity in actually winning this game because of the champions they've drafted. However, I think execution-wise, DFM have the easier composition to actually do those fights with. So, I think it's going to come a lot down to positioning. As I mentioned, Rakan is going to be very important to watch in a lot of these team fights. And obviously, Ino is going to be maybe the biggest member on Rascal Jester to watch, because a Mega Gnar that pops off versus a Mega Gnar that never goes Mega and is always mini really does make or break you in a lot of these team fights, especially when you are going to be relied on hugely in this matchup. So I know a lot of pressure on you. You're against Udapon. This is him in a flex role, but he knows what he's doing here. He's already punishing you.
Oh, he's just taking like pages out of Evie's playbook here, being aggressive at the level 1, and you'll notice, looking at those summoner spells, there's gone for the Ignite as well. And the DFM fans clearly coming out and forced to support their boy in the top side on this Renekton. Very excited to see how he plays out against Ino going down to this mid lane. Feel like it's going to be a little bit less interaction here, as Recap is taking a fair chunk of his health bar there, but Ryze generally doesn't have too much kill pressure. This bot lane, though, I think is where we can really start to see things pop off as Secret goes in for a short trade against Harp.
We'll just have to see what these two bot laners. I am really hopeful that we see from Soul, at least in this game, is the Nash's to the Manamune into Nash 2, but oh my god, Harp, one hook like that, and that's just level 2. That's just ping level 2, already hitting it, point and click blind into that brush. Oh, bot lane's going to be bloody. I feel like Steel's going to have to pressure and focus down bot side, and guess what? That's actually where his pathing is going. So, actually on the cards, and with a Thresh Lantern, you can definitely go deep. Udapon just playing with the edges. That does take a turret shot, but he wants it. Yeah, I can feel the Ebby pages flowing.
I'm glad that he's not like starting off. I'm glad that he's actually trying to take this lane to I know as much as possible. That may bite him in the bum in a second's time. Hachimecha hasn't spotted out that ward, so DFM have got
That's an
eyes
Ebby
on.
ward as well. That Ebby placed that. That is such an Ebby normal place to do that. Udapon, what are you doing your best clone or like impression of Ebby? Because so far, I'm okay with it. The CS is lacking, but you're into a pretty bad matchup, mate. So
no, look at this. Hachimecha, he's wrapping around, but he's not really got anything to pick up. If Rascal Jester don't make a dive on the top side work in the next sort of 30 seconds or something, then Hachimecha is going to have wasted a hell of a lot of time.
Look at who's going back there. Udapon hasn't got TP. He's only got Ignite and Flash, and Hachimecha's go for him.
Yeah, they're diving before he actually reaches the tower. Already down to around about 300 HP, and now they can look to redive. Hachimecha with the ball, forced to flash away, got the Ignite ticking on him, but that was very cleanly done by the Rascal Jester for first blood.
Absolutely fantastically done. Didn't decide to blow the flash, and he only sliced. He didn't get to dice because of the CC that did come out. So he's missing, I think, about 4 waves now at this point. So I mean, Udapon is already dead in the top lane match. Through that gank, through Hachimecha. That really does solidify. Ino was winning out in a lot of those trades. The fact that he had to go back and now has missed this much of a wave is just, oh God. I mean, Steel has to babysit top now, to some of the point.
It's unfortunate, and it's put Udapon in a position that he really didn't want to be. Lexi, I was looking at this thinking this is a little bit too ambitious, but Hachimecha getting the engage before Udapon reaches the tower means that the dive is just so much easier.
Yeah, and he got the full combo, did Hachimecha there. So, I mean, the fact that he was able to get the shield with the damage still proccing is pretty huge, but Harp is landing.
Pulled onto the chompers, and it's just a couple of rockets to the face for Soul. Secret roaming down to come and bail out his AD carry, who not doing too well at the moment on the Kai'Sa. He's one of these champs that can suffer a little bit in the laning phase, but you see that tier in inventory going towards that Muramana build. Those Void Seekers, once this Kai'Sa gets to 3 items, are going to be disgusting.
They will be. And assuming the Nash's Tooth gets built as well, then you get also the attack speed, so you can get your dash going. If you, assuming you go attack speed boots. The actual name of the boots I completely forgot about, but attack speed boots. And then also if you go into, with the Nash 2, you get 100 AP, so you also get your E fully evolved, so that's everything. But Udapon's getting ganked again.
He's being caught out, forced to flash away. Hachimecha cannot follow with a flash of his own, as Harp will hook up Soul in the bot lane. Secret potentially looking for an engage as the Zap and the Rockets do a heck of a lot of damage to Soul and Hachimecha. Recap. They don't realize that he just backed under his own tower. Udapon able to get out, but he is being heavily focused in the top side. Steel taking advantage of that jungle pressure to secure an early Drake for DFM.
I mean, but the thing is, because mid lane is missing now, Soul and Secret in this bot lane have to respect the fact that Yaharon could realm warp at any moment with a steal. With a steal as well, so they could just get double killed out of nowhere and lose maybe more than what Udapon's already losing.
Ramo taking a fair bit of damage. Harp is low as well. This DFM bot lane definitely playing on the edge, but crucially haven't really been found out by Soul and Secret as of yet, and are maintaining a little bit of that CS advantage. Talking about CS advantages though, look at this mid lane. Yaharong up sort of 1.5 waves, which is very impressive on the rise, who isn't really one of these champions that tends to thrive in the early game.
I mean, that's just the roaming that Recap's done. He's gone up top twice and not gotten anything for it. He's missed at least a wave in that punish, because I've watched I've watched Yaharong just immediately shove the wave in and just smack the mid turret. So you have to imagine DFM are like, okay, Udapon, weak side. You are playing weak side. You have to accept weak side now at this point. You don't have a choice. The amount of vision control that DFM have secured around bot side is kind of crazy. There's actually a line on the minimap you can see from where mid bot brush, just going through to the top of the red brush to the ward that's actually seeing Hachimecha right now. There's so much just control vision going on that DFM can play very aggressive and very safe with their bot lane, and it's what it was allowing them to actually rotate around and kind of force Soul and Secret off, because they just, everything was dark in their own jungle. They don't know anything, and Hachimecha is always topside. So this is such a weird spot. Udapon being top has put Soul and Secret on weak side.
Yeah, as Recap a little bit weak-sided in mid lane here, as few members of DFM were roaming over. Herald has spawned, and Steel is going to be the first one to start that one up. And with the full bot rotate as well from DFM, it's going to be very difficult for Rascal Jester to actually contest this in time. And Shelly burns down to 0 HP. Rascal Jester realized that they were a little bit too slow to the play, and that just means wasted time, wasted waves, XP and CS not being picked up for Soul.
That's really big for the side of DFM, because they needed if that landed. I was gonna be quiet the moment that hook landed. If it hit, won it. Come on, Harp, give it to me. But in reality, as you stated, they missed a few waves. That's experience lost for Soul, and that's far more needed for Soul, because he's just ticked over to 6, whereas Marimo was going into that Rift Herald fight with 6. So now he's going to be able to come here, collect this wave. Harp is also 6, may I add. So that's also a really important point of power for the side of DFM. We're having the cage now. And look at this. Marimo's just going to freeze. Just freezes.
That's so rude. That's so rude, so disrespectful, but it's absolutely the play that you can go for here. While Soul and Secret have a bit more agency with that level 6, with those ultimates available, they're definitely not going to be threatening Marimo on this Jinx for, well, any real period of time until we get sort of into these later fights. Alexia, I kind of want to come to you now because getting towards 10 minutes, as we might need to hold off on that as Hachimetra is waiting in this bot lane brush. Recap is starting to roam over. I think Rascal Jester is setting up a dive, Lexi.
Yeah, there's some missing pings coming out as Ari is rotating around, but they're getting a bit antsy.
Secret already ulting into the knock-up as Hachimetra dives under tower with the Stormbringer. Steel is here to back up the play, though, as TPs are coming in from members of DFM. Here comes Yaharong as Hachimetra is now going to get rooted down and caught out. 1-for-1 so far in that bot lane play, but with the realm walk coming forward, DFM are looking to secure even more. Beautiful killer instinct from Soul as he dashes away from the fight, and Recap is thinking about re-entering, thinking about turning this into a 3v3, but he doesn't really want to. Charm just going wide, and both teams will back away.
Would have loved to go back into that replay and watch Steel's cooldowns as they play into that second team fight into the realm warp, because I thought I watched him land a Q, but he couldn't go for the E, so I have to imagine he used a dash earlier on for Diana's reset, because I feel like he should have been able to get the kill on Soul there for the steal. So I have to imagine it wasn't there. We're gonna get a better idea here because obviously DFM wanted to go first. They opted in at the beginning, and fantastic from the Rascal Jesters, immediately collapsing and for the counter engage in the spot they found it in. So Soul goes really far in. I'm just going to pay attention to Steel here. So he lands the Q as he comes out. He was knocked up, right? That would have cancelled it. Okay,
it's not in range. Marimo caught out doing Gromp, and that is an easy kill for Secret. As on the other side of the map, Ono needs to go Mega, and he gets the ultimate off at the last possible second. Still going to flash forward, though, gets a boulder to the face, but still picks up the solo kill in the dive under the tower. Yaharong now playing onto Recap, but Secret is coming over. Will dash forward, will get the knock-up as well, as Hachimetra is here too, but Yaharong somehow gets the final overload and lanterns himself away. Beautifully played.
I said he loses that, and then he goes and wins it. I'm sorry, Yaharong. My apologies to you. I was not aware of how cracked you are. Obviously, if you're replacing Seros and Arya, you must be cracked. Clearly, we saw it there, middle cot with the performance from Yaharong. And what that's going to equal is because they got that kill on top lane, because Yaharong is just beast moding at the moment in the mid lane, means yes, they're going to seed over and give this neutral objective of this dragon, but they got first turret in the top lane.
You're going to feel good about that one. And Lexi, we were sort of talking about on the desk how DFM had potentially lost a couple of their carry lanes with Ebby going and then Utapon going up into that top side. We won't talk about that in a little bit as Yaharong here just damage checks Recap.
Yep. No, that's actually it. Yeah, you're bang on the money there, right, mate? We came in and they'd done the damage check. Recap obviously getting assistance, but the Q, that was the third Q that Yaharong probably could have hit, and just the prior two before was at the very beginning of that fight and one midway through. So I think actually, in all seriousness, because of how quick Rise's rotations are, Yaharong did a really good job there, and Recap did not respect the hands of Yaharong. This is the guy that's replacing the Emperor and the guy that was the MVP and touted as the best player in the LJL of Arya. And that's who's coming in and replacing. You can't just go, oh yeah, I'm going to hands check him. I said on the podcast last night, Yaharong, in my opinion, is better than Recap, and Recap's having a storming series and maybe top 3 mids in the LJL. Yaharong is built different though.
Absolutely is looked impetuous so far. It's reminding me of his sort of early season form when he went on that massive deathless streak, playing incredibly aggressive, but just knowing the limits so perfectly. It means that you're not really being pressured as much. Utapon wants to pop the Dominus a little bit prematurely there, in my opinion. Not having the best time in this top side.
I think he was worried about Mega now. And Hachimetra's reset, so he didn't have vision on where Hachimetra would be.
Yeah.
I think that's it, mate. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm theory crafting the idea with you.
A little bit scared, yeah. And I suppose when you are playing this sort of Renekton, you're not going to be the main carry. So I think it's a little bit more important that you just sort of stay safe. And we were talking before we got briefly interrupted by a replay about how DFM had potentially lost a couple of their carry lanes. But it's that man in the jungle, Steel, who is doing a lot of the carrying. Currently sat at 2-0 and has a pretty significant gold and CS advantage over Hatchimechi. You see 1.2k in the graphic there. So I think if we're looking for someone to carry this DFM lineup, it's that man, Steel.
I mean, Steel has been living up to his namesake with some of the Dragon Steals in some matchups. His rotations are fantastic, and he's actually ahead in a matchup where he could very easily have gotten behind and never caught back up it again. That's not happened. Diana being ahead of a Volibear in levels is slightly terrifying for the Volibear side, because if Diana hits 11, and it's going to be 11 a long time before now where Hatchimechi is. So the amount of damage that Steel will output in team fights is just not going to be actually matched by any member on the side of Rascal Jester till really Soul starts landing like double evolved version of everything really on this Kai'Sa.
We'll have to see if he's able to do that. And
but he's got to get the items first.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a different build. Yaharong, though, being engaged onto by Secret, hit up with the Everfrost too, but somehow still alive. Lances away, and the final auto won't be enough to take him out. Yaharong, how do you keep getting away with murder? Hatchimechi won't opt in under the tower. That was so much burnt by Rascal Jester. They really don't get anything for it.
No, they even used that TP, remember? And look at this. Marimo's been left in the bot lane. Harp, though, worrying for you, mate. Oh, no.
This is bold by Secret. Void Seeker does connect. Does so want to throw himself at the DFM support. It doesn't seem so. Still actually looking for Secret here. Able to grand entrance over the wall. But DFM putting out a lot of pressure around this Drake, which is spawning in just over a minute's time. Rascal Jester, though, with this free time on the top side, we'll be able to take the Herald. Marimo trading for this bot lane tier 1.
Wow, that is a bunch of gold that Marimo and DFM are going to be very happy. And I mean, normally trading a turret, if you're able to trade a turret for an objective, like around the map of Dragon or Rift Herald number 2, normally the turret is always the correct one to go for. So the fact that DFM didn't get collapsed on, they burnt Ino's TP, so now there's actually a summoner advantage in this top lane. This is actually really good for DFM. Like, DFM are just coming out on top in trades and scenarios, and they've got almost a 2k gold lead.
And what did we say, Lexi? In the pregame, if Rascal Jester are going to win this matchup, it's through early aggression and snowballing leads from your lanes. That's not really an option for them anymore. They are in that sort of 2k deficit, like you mentioned, and we're going to have to see something a little bit different from them, something a little bit more impressive as they have to fight from behind to secure this potential win.
Well, still leaving up to their namesake. He stole that early game from them, just denied them the opportunity, and Harp, I can feel them.
That was close.
I'm getting the vibes, but look, Yaharong, he's coming around the corner, and he's just kind of being that one-person man crew that can prevent the side of Rascal Jester from really doing it, because no one can actually out DPS Yaharong at the moment. So there's so much for the side of Rascal Jester where everything can go so wrong. It can also go so right, and you can see this. They brute force the vision there. Udapon is still the frontliner for DFM, and look at this, he's face checking.
Going directly onto Secret, but will able to slice himself away, and actually means that Rascal Jester are a little bit weaker in this position, and DFM can push forward and try and take down this mid lane tower.
Well, remember what I said to you just before when they took that bot lane tower in exchange for Herald? A turret in this early on in the game is always more important. And look at this, DFM just made the call, and we don't even want to fight for the dragon. And remember, they have one of the lowest dragon taking percentages in the early game. Like, they just don't take dragons, remember? They have like the worst first dragon rate in the whole region, because they always play for Herald and play for momentum, and out that dragon doesn't really offer you.
No, it's much more of a scaling objective, something that is going to benefit you around the sort of 25-30 minute mark, but having a gold lead at those points is oftentimes a bit more reliable and can put you in a bit more of a firm advantage. Yaharong just TPing bot lane to pick up fairly decent sized wave and denied that tower away from Rascal Jester, but that means that, yeah, Summoner's not going to be in advantage for DFM in that regard.
No, but DFM are going to be able to at least still push out this wave, collect it. It seems like everybody else is just recalling on the side of Rascal Jesters because it's like, well, what really can we get out at the moment? And what they now have to be worried about is that DFM are just going to start overtaking their jungle. Like, this is our jungle now, and we're going to just play through the side lanes, and if you guys don't match us in the rotations, we'll just brute force win, because who can stand up to Yaharong? We've already said nobody. Yeah. So it means Yaharong's just going to play 4-man side lane with the rest of his team, and this is what they've prepped this bot lane wave for. I am so worried for you, Recap, right now. You don't realize the pain you're about to experience.
Potentially, but Yaharong will just back away. And it's why it was so important to take those early towers. It's why DFM have favored that, because I think that they're probably the only team in the LJL, for my money, that does actually push vision quite extensively in that regard. So Goku do it to a certain extent as well, but DFM really are the masters of pushing any advantage that they get. Not so much this game, though. It has been a little bit calmer. Only had a couple of occasions where we've actually had fights break out, and I think that might be slightly due to DFM's more scaling composition here.
Oh, absolutely it is. And the fact that DFM have the scaling comp and they've gotten through the early game, and we're now in the mid transitioning, obviously, point. This is not where you need to be as Rascal Jester. Like, your volley bear is going to just be a big boy that will be tanky, but he'll be a big boy that's tanky. He's not going to really do much, and this is the point where you're kind of looking at your comp going, well, Soul doesn't actually have his Nash's Tooth yet, so he
doesn't
actually
have anything yet. It's that Manamune before the transformation is not a good item, so...
And he hasn't gone for like a Luden's First, which is a common ult that you can also go for. You go Luden's First, so you at least get the Luden proc on your E, and then you still also get your evolved E in an effective time frame. But I mean, it's with just an 1 amp tomb. But this is not an option that Recap has decided to go for, and we're kind of just sitting in awkward territory land for them. I'm a bit worried about the damage that's going to be coming out of Rascal Jester if they do opt into any team fights soon. Yeah. Because it just doesn't feel like it's going to be there.
I mean, to be fair to them, they have got 2 Drakes. So at least that's not something that they need to worry about DFM stacking anytime soon. I agree with you that they are in a pretty weak spot now, and you can see that DFM like sort of knows this. They're pushing forward, they're clearing out these wards, securing some more vision around the top side of the map, around this Baron, which is now on the table. Rascal Jester, I feel like they need to look for a pick. Like, they've got a lot of pick tools on their composition as Utapon is going for a bit of an all-in onto Ino and is quickly realizing that he doesn't actually win that one.
No, Trinity Force is a very powerful item on Gnar at this moment in time, and Mini Gnar just outputs so much damage and punishment. The thing is, Renekton's really good at healing it all back up, so even with all that punishment, it's not really going to amount to much, and I think the only thing for me in this game that I'm a little bit worried about is that potentially Utapon won't be with the team because there is going to be a TP disadvantage because they decided to go with this Ignite. They didn't win the early game. They didn't put Ino into the dirt. So it means Ino very much has the opportunity to assist his team a lot more than what Utapon can do if he doesn't rotate around earlier, which means Ino, in a sense, can just sidewave push a lot more. So we're going to have to see Yaharong more so match Ino, I feel, or Ino might actually have an opportunity to get the Jesters really into this game and force an advantage on the side lanes.
And forcing those sort of TP discrepancies can be so impactful. We did actually see on the minimap there, Marimo checking the Baron with a Super Mega Death Rocket. So DFM had a small lapse in vision and weren't sure what Rascal Jester were doing. Harp uses the box, but Secret able to battle dance himself away.
A huge ult.
Rascal Jester, huge ult, like you mentioned, have got this sort of position around the Ocean Drake. It would be Soul Point if they could pick this up, and Harp just gets deleted before anything can even happen. Secret taking a fair bit of damage too, but does escape on few hundred HP. Utapon brawling up with Hachimecha, but has been slightly caught out. Soul will go forward, but has to flash away immediately as Secret is looking for something, but has to go golden very early. I know whiffs the ultimate, but I don't think it's going to matter for Rascal Jester as Marimo has also been caught out. Utapon diving into the backside, but he's not. Ebby crucially and will go down. Yaharong, the last man standing for DFM, but he's going to be forced to run away as fast as he can. Rascal Jester, they find a massive team fight around the Drake.
Yeah, and that was just lack of vision control, seeding it over to the side of the Jesters. Harp getting absolutely removed prior to the fight, getting charmed, and it was all over. The fact is, they also had used the box earlier. That's a huge cooldown that we already mentioned. There wasn't much you can do here. The thing is, if you are DFM at this moment in time, you can just go, okay, we're going to do this team fight without now our support. Yeah, their support's pretty low, but he still has his ultimate, so it's pretty risky for us to do anything. The issue is, Utapon goes in and gets caught out by Hachimecha so early on, and then the side of DFM really struggled to ever get into anything, because look at that. I know this whole time was zoning Yaharong, so when he tried to then come into his fight, Hachimecha actually taked over, and they just tag teamed. The two tanks kept the rise out of this team fight for the whole time. Marimo just never got into a great spot, and Rascal Jesters would gladly take that fight as it was, and it puts them to Dragon Soul points. So you know the Jesters have a win condition now in this game.
And the thing that was really strange for me was how disconnected DFM looked in that fight. Yeah, you've not got Ebby, but you still got 4 of the 5. And I'm assuming that you at least got like some game time with Marimo. And that was a team fight that just sort of looked a little bit all over the place. And it means that Rascal Jester now, hey, they're sat on Soul Point. They're in the ascendancy. Soul has got a massive power spike here on this Muramana, that Nash's Tooth, and the Lost Chapter completed. So he's getting very, very close to that Luden's market. Mid lane tower is going to fall as well. Rascal Jester, they didn't get a lead in the early game, but they found themselves in the ascendancy. Marimo forced to Zonya's there to keep himself alive. A Secret ults as well, but will just back away. And we're already seeing come to fruition the power that this Kai'Sa can have.
Yeah, and the other thing is we're just not seeing Steel actually have this damage. This Diana has fallen off pretty hard, and we saw a pretty decent combo come out from Steel and just, no, not doing the damage. This is personally why I do prefer to go Nash's Tooth second item onto Diana's in a lot of spots. I know he went for the Zonya's and it makes sense versus the comp of Rascal Jesters. It's just I do prefer it because your passive is such an important prop for Diana's damage output in team fights in a lot of spots. So not having that for the extra damage passive that the Nash's Tooth has as well as Diana's own passive means it's not going to be great. And still, you're getting taken down pretty low without even being able to do much. That's not great.
But I'm glad that we're seeing that, because I've seen a lot of these sort of poke Kai'Sa builds not really being pressured. And so true. if Soul could just keep throwing out these Void Seekers, then he's going to have a very fun time. Secret here, a little bit closer to Harp than he would potentially like, but able to dash himself away just fine there. Yaharong now 1v1ing Recap on the side lane, rooting him up with the Everfrost, but the healing that can come through from that Essence Thief passive is going to be just fine. Yaharong doesn't have the Realm Warp or a TP, does have Flash available, so Rascal Jester probably not going to be able to kill him on this play, but they secure themselves another tower. That's now 3 apiece.
Just match them. That's what DFM did early game. We'll just match them into mid-late game when it doesn't matter about those turrets so much, and DFM didn't pressure the side of Rascal Jester. They had that opportunity. The thing is, they opted into a mid-lane dragon fight, and it just didn't really equal to anything. Well, not that DFM would have wanted, really. And now Soul has got his Luden. So now this Kai'Sa is well and truly online. So this game, DFM, where I was saying about 5 to, well, actually around the 20-minute mark when everything was going great for you, Kai'Sa's not online. You've got a lot of time to do whatever you need to do to get your objectives, to push them in. You haven't played the side lanes for about 7 minutes, 8 minutes now, DFM. No. And this is in a spot now where I worry for the team fight, because while I think there is an easier execution of front to back, Rascal Jester seem like the more cohesive comp at the moment when we just look at the eye test and play. And geez, that's why you don't let Kaiser come online.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. And if you look at the itemization as well, Marimo has dipped into a null magic mantle, probably going towards a hex drinker, so not going to be on those damage spikes. Utapon also building this hull breaker, so in the team fights, not going to really have those damage spikes. And yeah, I agree with you, Lexi. Rascal Jester definitely feel like they are in the advantageous position at the moment as Harp takes a Void Seeker to the face. With the Ocean Drake spawning in 30 seconds time, it could get rough for DFM before it gets better. Steel with a very well-timed Zhonya's there to keep himself alive as Utapon is hiding on the side. I know it's going to be the first target. That's not really a priority as the Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't connect onto anyone as in goes Secret over the wall, catching out multiple members of DFM. It's a fight on multiple fronts and it's all going well for Rascal Jester. Utapon soloed out on the other side. That's going to be Yarog taken out as well. And Rascal Jester, they say, screw the Ocean Soul. We're just going to get Baron.
Charming everybody. Does Rakan and Ari like a succubus? I am drawn to them both, and I will watch them for days. Oh my god, Secret. You literally have no chill, do you, my dude? Because that was dirty. You can't do that to Marimo. You can't do this to Yarog. Oh, but you absolutely will. Multiple members get charmed by the Rakan, which beautifully steps up for Recap with his charm, and the amount of damage that the side of DFM get caught out with so early on. And remember, Soul actually had done a decent amount of damage just before this fight even kicked off. Those health bars are lower than they should be. Utapon does try and come in, but I want you to watch Secret right here. Just watch this Rakan. Gorgeous charm there, zoning Marimo and Steel immediately, comes out, charms again, gets another one, and then it just sets up beautifully for Ino to come in and do this. The zoning alone from what the charm does to prevent from Secret is game-changing. It literally puts DFM in a negative spot. They can never get in, and then they lose everything. And look at this, it's just gone from bad to worse. They got the Ocean Soul while we're on that replay.
Yeah, Rascal Jester, pretty super powered right now, feeling pretty invincible. Utapon shoving out this side lane, but I think you're going to get caught out here, buddy. Hachimecha leveling up, smites for the move speed steal, and I don't think that Utapon really has any way of getting out of this situation. Just going to be running it down as much as possible. But the thing is, he's buying time for DFM right now. Hachimecha actually forced to ult over the wall. This is a lot of time investment from the Rascal Jester jungler, which means he isn't necessarily pressuring the places that he needs to be, as Ido is also being caught out on a side lane, forced to flash away and jump over the wall as Utapon somehow still alive. Will get chucked over that wall by Hachimecha, who is finally going to be able to take him down as Rascal Jester also take a tower in the bot side. A little bit of a clown fiesta at the moment, but as it stands, Soul pressuring onto this inhib, but with 4 members of DFM turning up to the bot side, not going to be able to take it down. Recap, though, just taking out a tower in the mid lane.
Yeah, and this is Rascal Jester rotating better, finding the spots, and also, quite frankly, DFM all went 4-man top, and Ino jumped over a wall and got away with a flash as well, only burning. That is so worth if you look at it and go, yes, but would you like multiple turrets in mid bot, and then to be still knocking on their front door with the bot lane buffed minions, and they go, yes, we will gladly take that for our top laner's flash on a Mega Gnar. That's fantastic for them. DFM, you are getting dismantled, pulled apart, in the threads of hopefulness that I came into feel like they've been burnt, squandered, and forgotten about 5 years ago. It's so sad to see, but Rascal Jester, fantastic performance and very similar to what we saw from the previous matchup.
Steel going in, diving onto Soul, but only landing onto one, and the moonfall wasn't really what you needed. It's the first kill of the fight for Rascal Jester, and I feel like there are going to be 4 more coming very, very soon. Yaharong jumping down, Recap dashing forward, Marimo going to be able to lantern himself away as Utapon is diving into the back line, but lasts not very long. Hachimecha stunning the AD carry under the tower, will be forced to walk himself away, but Marimo just gets bobbed into a wall and taken down. Rascal Jester, in what is still an upset, will take out DFM and go 2-1 against them in the regular split. This is something that no one expected them to be able to do, but they've done it.
They absolutely have, and Rascal Jesters take a bow. You played very well that game. You knew exactly what you wanted to do execution-wise, and did it flawlessly, frankly. I think you played really well, and that you knew that Udapon was going to be a weak point. You knew that Marimo was going to be a weak point, and you injected yourselves and your ways you were going to play this game into that. You didn't get punished when you could have.
Ooh.
And I mean, I'm really impressed. I'm loving what we're going to see for a Juggernaut match, mate.
And from my point of view, I was sort of worried about Rascal Jester. I was like, you're going late versus a Rise versus a Jinx, but the poke that was coming out from Souls Kaiser, once we started to get to that 2.5 to that 3 item spike, it was just pretty obscene, and DFM didn't really ever aggress onto Soul in a way that they needed to shut down the Kaiser and prevent him from popping off.
What a performance. This means the LJL is still staying very competitive middle cards. there's so much to really unpack here, and I'm not even sure where to start. Oh, wait, we probably shouldn't, should we?
We shouldn't, yeah, because we are going to be going to a break very shortly. Join us in a couple of minutes as J-Roll is going to be with us on the Analyst Decks to break that game down. Don't go anywhere.
Transition.
Hello and welcome back, and what a game to kick us off. Match of the week, as said in the start of the game, and Rascal Jester is clowning on DFM once again. And to be fair, it's not what I expected. You know, it's not what I would have said going into this game, but I want to first talk about, obviously, the top lane switch up. Renekton coming back into the top lane, kind of going old school LJL, like pre this season. If I thought top lane is Renekton, that's the situation. Is Utapon maybe a little bit out of the meta? You know, is he maybe thinking about the old ways? Is this a moment where he's like to the team, when I was your age, Renekton was the pick? Is that kind of what we're hearing here, Muscle? Is that the vibe that we got from this game?
I mean, the thing is, I feel like we kind of put, DFM put themselves into this spot. Obviously, Yaharong is actually the player that has played Renekton more on this roster than that Ebby has this split. So I would have liked to have seen probably Yaharong play that. Obviously, though, it would have been into the Ahri matchup. And I'll be honest, this is one of the things that really kind of perplexes me, because why would you do this when Udapon has played a bucket load of Tryndamere recently? Ah, yes, they banned it, didn't they? Well, wait, no, they didn't. It was all mid lane bans, so why didn't they do the Tryndamere in the first rotation? Don't really know that one. Maybe the old guard thinks true.
Maybe they were just like, you know what, we're gonna smoke this game. They overestimated themselves, and they were like, we don't need to, not die.
With that Ignite top lane, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we don't need to not die. We'll be fine. We'll win the game. But going back to what we talked about before the game, we obviously talked about Rascal Jesters winning their second game against DFM because they had that good early game, and that is something that really showed up again from Rascal Jesters. And I feel like it's kind of been a question for Rascal Jesters throughout the whole of the earlier stages of the season is, are they going to be able to keep it together enough in the early game to set themselves up for their good team fighting? And Middelcourt, do you feel like that's kind of been more true as we've gone through the season?
Well, I mean, definitely true in this game. We talked about DFM being a team that you didn't really fancy yourselves against, even if you had a small gold advantage. Rascal Jester came into the mid game at a slight deficit, but they were still able to find these team fights. For me, mainly off the back of recap, actually. There were a couple of moments where we saw some key charms onto members of DFM, and as soon as the fight starts, 5v4, you're always going to be favoring Jester in that scenario when they are in that more even state. I think that Sol had an excellent game on the Kaiser as well. I can't remember an occasion where he really got called out. So I think this was really sort of the perfect storm for Rascal Jester, obviously benefiting from DFM having to make the substitutions, but then we also saw some very good performances from their key carries.
Yeah, and I think that we had that weird middle game where it felt like DFM kind of started bringing it back. It reminded me of game one that they played, where it was like, okay, Ross just doing well, but then DFM kind of just taking it away from them. Yaharong obviously really, really strong on that rise as well, was looking scary, but that kind of all faded away. Team fighting came through. Ross just did what they did best, and are they the best team fighting team in the LJL, Mas1?
No, DFM is still the better one. I agree. But I mean, Rascal Jester found the picks. I want to bring it back to that point that Middelcourt set up with that Ari pick, because that's where it all kind of capitulated. That blind charm into the brush onto Harp, which then they just removed and deleted. And then DFM opted into the fight afterwards. They were like, all right, that's fine. We can win 4v5. I don't know why you thought that was an okay one to go for. That was not a great one. And honestly, before that, they had about a 5 to 7 minute period of time where DFM controlled the bot side brush, remember? They had all the vision. They never collapsed on Soul. They never collapsed on Secret. They didn't really punish them. And then they were allowed to come into that game, like you said, J-Real. That Kaiser was huge. That was like, the fact that he was able to get 3 items was just mind-boggling to me. But fantastic, and they got them there. That's why the Jesters are still such a scary team.
Yeah, Kaiser definitely coming back in the meta in whatever lane she can, to be honest. Obviously, we've seen a lot of mid lane as well. Bot lane now, maybe. I don't really know. Maybe we'll see some top lane Kaiser soon. But all in all, a very, very strong team.
Actually possible.
Yeah. Oh, my days. I kind of hope not. But either way, Rascal Jesters, they're making their stamp on this league. They're really showing up. They're really putting in the work, and it's paying off for them now on a 9-win streak. Big question. Could they continue it all the way through to the rest of the season? Do you think they go undefeated?
Well, I think given that they don't have to play DFM again, it is a distinct possibility. And what this win does actually raise the potential of is Rascal Jester actually claiming first place. It would require DFM to drop a couple more games to a couple more teams, yes. But with Rascal Jester owning that head-to-head, if these two teams end on the same record at the end of the split, it's Rascal Jester who are going in as the first seed. And yeah, that doesn't matter much for the Juggernaut match because you're still going to be playing against each other. But the prestige of securing first place in a regular split is something that very few teams in the LJL have actually done. And if Rascal Jester are able to do it, it would be historic, not only for the LJL, but for this organization as a whole.
I will say, as much as I'd love to hype it up, bring the story that they're going to come through like Shaco, just jumping in like, hello, and just stab DFM in the back. I don't think that's what's going to happen. DFM, looking at their schedule, they've got Burning Core next, which is, to be fair, one of their hardest games that they have to come next. Then they have V3, which, well, that will be... Then it's Axis, then it's CGA, and then finally it's the Hawks. So they have, in terms of schedule...
It's an all right one. It's an all right one. J-Real, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not a dreamer. I'm not going to pretend that this is a realistic expectation. But if the season pans out the way I want it to, it'll be damn entertaining, to say the least.
You might
Yeah,
call me a
100%.
dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I'm with Middlecott on that. I've got big aspirations for this Rascal Jester comp. I would love to see it, frankly, an undefeated run. And then DFM, I mean, if Ebby's out for a few more games, that's a possibility. And remember, J-Real, before, Udapon, when he did an interview, they're open to trying stuff at the moment. They're open to losing and not really letting it affect their mental game too much. So, I mean, we could see DFM dropping a few matches just because they're trying some spicy stuff out.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it out. V3 DFM. That's the one.
That's the one.
That's gonna be the one. They're gonna break their wins, their loss streak, and DFM will lose. That's what I'm looking for. That's the hype that I want. Rascal Jesters have a little bit of tougher schedule. Sengoku and Burning Core on that roster, but they do still have Access V3. They also have CGA in the next game day. So pretty similar schedules. Sengoku obviously being there is a little bit problematic, but all in all, they definitely could go for the win streak, and we'll have to find out soon. But going back to today, we are going to go for a short break. We'll be back with the Hawks taking on Axis.